In other immigration news, New York Governor David Paterson has announced a new effort to help prevent long-time legal immigrants from being deported for old or minor criminal convictions. Paterson plans to create a 5-member Special Immigration Board of Pardons to review cases such as Ching-Hong Wu, who was recently profiled in the New York Times. Wu is a 29-year-old information technology executive who's been threatened with deportation because he participated in a series of muggings as a 15-year-old. He'd not lived in his native China since he was 5. Paterson said, quote, "Some of our immigration laws, particularly with respect to deportation, are embarrassingly and wrongly inflexible. In New York, we believe in renewal. In New York, we believe in rehabilitation," the governor said. At least 28 people have died in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Kentucky following a weekend of record rainstorms. Hardest hit was Nashville, Tennessee, where the Cumberland River rose more than 32 feet after the region received more than 13 inches of rain. Thousands of people have been forced from their homes. Country music's landmark, the Grand Ole Opry House, was flooded with several feet of water. Half the counties in Tennessee have been declared disaster areas. And Reporters Without Borders has issued its list of predators of press freedom to mark World Press Freedom Day. The group described the list as, quote, 40 politicians, government officials, religious leaders, militias, and criminal organizations that cannot stand the press, treat it as an enemy, and directly attack journalists. Names on the list include Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Hu Jintao, the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and the Israeli military and the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. Just days before the list was released, the Israeli military blocked a crew from the TV network Al Jazeera from covering a Palestinian rally in the West Bank village of Bilin. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Sharif Abdel-Qaddous.
And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers. Erik Prince doesn't like being in the media spotlight. The reclusive owner of the private military firm known as Blackwater is scheduled to give the keynote address tomorrow at the Tulip Time Festival in his hometown of Holland, Michigan. True to form, Prince told the event's organizers no news reporting could be done on his speech, and they consented to the ban. But journalists and media associations in Michigan protested the move, and on Monday the organizers reversed their position and said the media would be allowed to attend with one caveat: no video or audio recording devices are allowed inside. Well, despite Prince's attempts to shield his speeches from public scrutiny, investigative journalist and Democracy Now! Correspondent Jeremy Scahill obtained a rare audio recording of a recent private speech delivered by Prince to a friendly audience in January. The speech, which Prince attempted to keep from public consumption, provides a stunning glimpse into his views and future plans and reveals details of previously undisclosed activities of Blackwater. Jeremy's article on the recording of Prince's speech was published on his new blog for thenation.com.
The audio of the speech has never before been broadcast. Today we'll air excerpts in a Democracy Now! Exclusive. But first, Jeremy Scahill joins us here in our Democracy Now! Studio. He's an award-winning independent journalist, Puffin Foundation Writing Fellow at the Nation Institute, and the author of the international bestseller Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Jeremy is also scheduled to speak tomorrow in Holland, Michigan, just hours after Erik Prince at a separate event organized by the Interfaith Congregation of Holland. Jeremy Scahill, welcome to Democracy Now!
Nice to be here.
So talk about this tape. How'd you get it?
Well, Erik Prince has been in media, at times because he has had to respond. When his forces killed 17 innocent Iraqis at Nicer Square, he made the rounds on CNN and 60 Minutes and other places, and he generally goes into a very controlled environment. He doesn't often give speeches. He doesn't lecture on the university circuit, and when he does give talks, he makes it very clear to the event organizers that there are to be no recording devices in there, and journalists are not allowed. And so I had a contact with someone who had the opportunity to go to this private event that was hosted by the Young Presidents organization. And Erik Prince was giving a speech in front of all of these entrepreneurs. It was a private gathering, and they had ROTC cadets from the University of Michigan, the commanders of ROTC there. And in fact, at one point during his speech, Erik Prince stops after he had been bashing some NATO countries and saying that some of the U.S. allies in Afghanistan should pack up their bags and get out of the country. He singled out Canada as a positive example of a force that was doing a good job in Afghanistan. He stopped and he said, I just want to make it clear, everything I'm saying here is off the record in case any journalist slipped into the room. Well, let's remember, this is a man whose company does 90% of its business with the federal government. Taxpayers fund this man's corporation. We have a right to know what he's up to. We have a right to know, when you can't get documents on Blackwater, what the owner of this company is saying. So I revealed the details of this tape in the interest of the First Amendment, freedom of the press, but also because I believe the American people have a right. So someone contacted me, said they were going to be going to this, and I asked that individual, do you think you could record it? And so what happened was that this person went into the event and clandestinely recorded Erik Prince speaking. And what he said was really incredible. There are a number of key points to focus on. One is that Erik Prince said that the United States should send armed mercenaries, he doesn't use the term, but that's what they are, armed mercenaries, into Somalia, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria. With the exception of Nigeria, he talked about Yemen and Somalia and Saudi Arabia facing Iranian threats, and that the Iranians were, as he put it, at the dead center of badness in the world. And he said that by sending in private contractors, armed contractors, instead of the military, you solve the sort of political problems from sending a large U.S. force, and said that the private sector can do this in a much smaller footprint way, and it also would be politically expedient because there would essentially be plausible deniability on the part of the government. In the case of Nigeria, of course, we've seen an increase in resistance movements and indigenous movements that are protesting against multinational oil corporations polluting, doing what they perceive to be stealing of Nigeria's most valuable resource, this oil-rich African nation. Erik Prince talked about these Nigerian groups as stealing oil from the multinational oil corporations and suggested, without providing any evidence whatsoever, that revenue from this theft by Nigerian groups of the oil was being used to fund terrorist operations. I talked to some military sources that I have that have extensive experience with U.S. Special Forces in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, and what they found most disturbing about what Prince said was that Prince told a story of July 2009 where his narcotics interdiction unit, a 200-person strike force in Afghanistan that I had never heard of this force before, they actually were operating near the Pakistan border. They came across what they said was a massive hashish and heroin operation, and Blackwater forces actually called in airstrikes that then came in and destroyed this facility. The idea that a private company is individually calling in airstrikes raises serious questions about the chain of command issue in Afghanistan. How is it that a private force is able to simply get on the phone and within moments call in airstrikes that take out anything? The other story that disturbs military folks that I've talked to is that Erik Prince tells a story of how his Blackwater forces resupply a U.S. military unit with ammunition when they're running low. And he says that the reason that Blackwater did it is because there was too much lawyering involved with the official military doing it. So Blackwater was contacted, he said, by this military unit, and they brought in the resupply, the ammunition. Again, chain of command issues. How is it that Blackwater is able to just unilaterally work with individual units of the U.S. military, or in the case of the so-called drug bust, that they're actually calling in airstrikes? Prince Amy also said that Blackwater took down Muqtada al-Zaidi, the Iraqi journalist who threw his shoes at President Bush, and Prince called the Secret Service flat-footed and said that he's going to be publishing a book in the fall. Erik Prince is. It's going to be like, chicken soup for the mercenary soul. And he said he's going to publish a photo of the Blackwater guy taking down the man that Prince called the Iraqi shoe bomber. I've never heard an allegation that there was a bomb there, but I mean, when Erik Prince is speaking in front of the media, you get one version of the story. When he's talking in front of business leaders in the military, you hear a very different side of things, and I think it's very revealing. The Pentagon should be asking very serious questions right now of Erik Prince about what exactly his forces are doing in Afghanistan. He also said he controls 4 forward operating bases inside of Afghanistan, including one at the base of the mountains of Tora Bora, which is the closest U.S. base, and it's operated in Erik Prince's terms by Blackwater to the Pakistan border. But he described having these in different strategic locations around Afghanistan. This was not a speech by a man who seems like he's concerned that he's going out of business anytime soon. He seems to be doing quite well and very much at the center of things in Afghanistan.
Well, Jeremy, we want to go to one of those clips. This has never before been broadcast. It's difficult to hear.
Right.
We have the transcript up for our television viewers, but for our radio audience, when you set up this clip, this is about the Geneva Conventions.
Right. I mean, this was was recorded by someone who had to do it secretly. So it was recorded from the seat in the audience with the with the room ambiance. So it's a bit hard to make out. But what Erik Prince he says that people have come up to him and said, "Aren't you concerned when you operate in the likes of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan?" Interesting, because Blackwater has denied it works in Pakistan. But here is Erik Prince mentioning his work in Pakistan. Aren't you concerned that when you work in these places, you don't have protection under the Geneva Convention? There's a debate about this, that they could be classified as unlawful